The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille. Welcome to the Italian Grape Geek podcast. Join us as we explore personal stories of travel and tasting with Italy's must-know grape varietals. Chart your own course with My Italian Grape Geek Journal, your personal tasting companion to accompany the series. Available now on Amazon. With thanks to Colangelo and Partners for their generous support with this project.
Hello, it's Gianluca Queiroli. I'm back to talk about Manzoni Bianco. So Manzoni Bianco is also known as Incrocio Manzoni 6013, which interestingly is a variety that was created in the 1930s by Professor Manzoni, which it takes the name from in the enology school in Conegliano. And originally, it was thought to be a crossing of Riesling and Pinot Bianco. However, it was later determined that the Riesling partner was not actually Pinot Bianco, but it was Chardonnay. Manzoni Bianco is a white wine grape variety, mainly found in Veneto, but also in Trentino, in the northeastern part of Italy. Usually the production is of white, still dry, which many are medium to full body wines. They're very fresh. They have a really nice and intriguing minerality as well as spiky acidity with some spice and floral character. In 2010, just to give the audience an idea, just a little over 1,000 hectares were planted, which is actually interesting because that is twice as much from 10 years before. So I personally encounter Manzoni Bianco in a lot of different DOC and IGT in Veneto as a blending partner. I never ever tried until a few years ago from one of my favorite producers, Foradori, an expression of monovarietal Manzoni Bianco. And I was hooked because I don't think I've stopped drinking that specific wine since. So what happens in the vineyard, the way this grape variety is and acts and behaves, it early ripens, so with an average number of buds, which gives a good yield, not too low, not too high. The vine producer is limited in vigor, and he really, really thrives into soils that have an average fertility, as well as they're not located into valleys, but rather into hilly sites, as well as like a ventilated climate, which is ideal in the northern part of Veneto or Veneto in general, as well as Trentino, which tend to be fairly dry. The cluster is small, is compact, is a conical shape. The berries are small. They have a thick skin and a very juicy flesh with distinct flavors. The only typical challenge is really the sunburn, because they're small. They can really get into sunburn. Typically is trained on spur cordon or guillot, and they have a good resistance because of the thick skin variety that it is. They also have a good resistance to cold winter and to late frost, which again makes this area of Italy, of Veneto, and especially Trentino, sometimes subject. The grape produce really high quality wines. They are moderately aromatic. They're fruity with stone fruit, peach, pear, and some spices. And me personally, maybe is a producer related compound and quality. There is always an undertone of herbal component along the spice. The wines can be quite concentrated. They're fairly rich and dry, with a good backbone of acidity and minerality, which can be, fairly high in some vintages and from some locations. There is also a very notable florality in the aromas. They have a great structure between the body and the acidity to make it suitable for sparkling wine productions, which typically there are wines that are found in Italy and very rarely make it outside Italy. So as we said, mostly dry with some sparkling production, and more producer now with increase in size and hectarage throughout the two regions that we talked about, they tend to produce monovarietal wines. When it comes to how do we pair Manzoni Bianco, me personally, I really enjoy it alone as a standalone. It's a wine that has a lot of different aromas going on, and I enjoy it alone. But if I were to think, I actually drank my last bottle about 2 weeks ago, and I use it with a pasta with onion and tuna. So I thought that was actually a great pairing. You also have a good match with the saltiness of anchovies, for example, or some caramelized goat cheese, as well as some buttery and cheeses like Gruyere. What is he found in appellation and regions? We talked about Veneto, we talked about Trentino, and they usually are in Trentino DOC, in Colli Verici DOC, or Colli di Conegliano, and Vicenza DOC, as well as Bianco di Custosa, which for me personally is where I encounter the most Manzoni Bianco blended. And of course, as a benchmark producer, I would strongly recommend Foradori, which makes the monovarietal, as well as Lagardère from Trentino.
Coming back to America, Vinitaly International Academy, the ultimate Italian wine qualification, will be held in New York City from 4 to 6 March 2024. Have you got what it takes to become the next Italian Wine Ambassador? Find out at vinitaly.com.
Hello, I'm back. It's Gianluca, and we are going to talk about Marzemino, or shall we say Berzamino, Bassamino, Uva Tedesca. So the grape, it's commonly referred to Marzemino, but in the its history has actually been used locally or not with a lot of other synonyms. The concentration of where we find this grape is largely Trentino Alto Adige, Lombardia, and Veneto. So we are really into the northeastern, part of the country. There is a little bit over 1,000 hectares, so it's relatively small, and it's thought to be an offspring of Teroldego, and a parent of Marzemino Bianco and Refosco dal Peduncolo Rosso. It has been documented for over 7 centuries and always been considered a very high quality. Again, like many others, and as we saw in the latest one on Manzoni Bianco, it's more typically found in blended wines and appellations with other grape varieties. In the vineyards is a late ripener, is a dark skin type of grape, and the main difference being the cluster shape and the organoleptic features. It's a medium long cluster, which sort of like two short wings, if you will, but it's very like cylindrical, pyramidal type of shape. It's a medium size. It has blue and black colors, if you will, and the skin is fairly thick. It also has some pinkish color effect in his flesh, and it is a very flavorful but quite straightforward aromas. It's a very vigorous grape, so a lot of potential challenges by the vineyard managers and viticulturists to keep yields down and in favor of quality. However, it's quite easy adaptable to almost every soil type, whether it is clay, calcareous, pebbly, stones, and whatnot. He likes very dry and ventilated climate, which again, in that part of Italy, especially Veneto and Trentino, it happens quite, often. Maybe going into Lombardia, depending on where you are on the sides. It is susceptible of powdery mildew, however, and some other type of rot diseases as well. So there's a lot of prevention that goes into the vineyards, and it's quite a lot of work. However, when it is really grown in those areas where there is less climatic influence, it becomes very, very easy to grow, as we said, and quite vigorous. What does it look and what does it taste like in the glass? So the first type of aroma that really catch your interest is really the sour cherry, as well as some herbal aromas. However, the balance of the acid and the tannic structure, it's quite remarkable. It's very refreshing. There is this overall red and black berry scent and bouquet that is lively throughout the drinking experience, really, of really intense ruby red. The body is medium to full, and it can be quite, tannic, especially in its youth. What type of styles do we encounter with this grape? Well, dry and still red, wines, they can be, if tannins are properly managed, they can be on the fruity side and quite drinkable in the youth, but they can also, depending again how fermentations are gone down to more structure of the tannic presence, and therefore need a little bit more time to develop. As we also mentioned, it's often blended, and one of the most important appellation is Colli di Conegliano and Botticino DOC. As blending partners, we found Merlot here, but also some Barbera, which is everywhere in the north, especially of Italy, and some Sangiovese as well. There are versions, mostly locally, that you can find of Passito, as well as Avocado medium sweet, and also some sparkling version, mostly in Emilia-Romagna and Veneto, if you feel adventurous to try. I try a medium sweet and mostly the dry wines. I never personally try the sparkling, but I'll make sure that is on my list to do next time I visit one of those regions. The food pairing, I would probably divide those two styles that I described. The more tannic structured ones, perhaps with some roast, whether it's lamb or beef, and maybe with those, herbal components like rosemary, garlic, and so forth. And those that have a less tannic structure, a mature blue cheese or a cheese, it's always easy to match with. In terms of appellation, we mentioned the Colli di Conegliano, which is probably the most important one, but I would also consider Colli di Scandiano di Canossa, as well as Trentino DOC, along with Botticino. And in terms of producers that you can find probably beyond Italy, you certainly have Cantina Furlani, as well as Cadefrati, which is typically what we find here in the US, but also more within the Italian territory and those regions, Le Vigne di Alice, as well as Pasini San Giovanni. I hope you enjoyed the series, and thank you very much for listening.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.